Welcome back to Angie and Christie Right Now. Today, we're diving into the vibrant world of speculative fiction and independent media with a truly multifaceted artist. Our guest is an accomplished author, nonfiction editor, and a passionate advocate for independent media and culture. He's also the driving force behind the Fabulist Magazine, a publication that has been a beacon for short fiction, poetry, and art since 2007. It stands out for its commitment to speculative fiction, including science fiction, fantasy, horror, and magic realism. And the publication isn't just about escapism. It's about using fantastical fiction and art to provoke thought and advance our shared human condition. They have a clear mission to support creative and critical works that foster a sustainable, just, peaceful, and diverse world, and to celebrate art that challenges and inspire. If you believe in the power of art to change lives and the importance of independent media, then today's episode is for you. We are thrilled and honored to have with us the editor and publisher of the Fabulist Magazine, Josh Wilson. Thank you so much for coming on our show. Yay! Is there anything that you would like to add to that biography?
You're very generous. I do need to also represent for my colleagues, my co-founder Adam Meyers, whom I knew in San Francisco and who now lives in Youngstown, an accomplished gallery exhibiting artist and fine artist who has brought a really unique visual accent and perspective and flavor to the entire publication. He does all the illustrations for anything we publish. And also Russell Gonzaga, our poetry editor, still out in the Bay Area, and a terrific fellow, a former champion slam poet, touring slam poet, and a great educator, thinker, and provoker. So Russell and Adam are also essential parts of the Fabulist.
Fantastic. Love it. Love it.
Thank you.
So with all our creatives, all of the artists that we interview, we always start with the same question, which today is going to be a little different because we're going to interview you as a writer, editor, and publisher. So let's start the question with, how did you know that you wanted to get into the publishing industry?
Yeah, an interesting question. As a kid, I always knew I would be a writer, and then remember being distinctly surprised at how hard it was. Really, really difficult. Like, why didn't this story just tumble out of my typing fingers onto the page? So that was 10, 11, 12, that I wound through a journalism program in college and became and still am a journalist and editor, and worked for many years and still do work as a freelancer for a variety of mainstream news publications. I worked at SF Gate in San Francisco, which was the website of the San Francisco Chronicle back got started in the late 90s, so lived through the whole .com thing. At that time, began to really appreciate the power of self-publishing or independent publishing, I think, was really what I think was becoming clear to me. I always knew we wanted to make a zine, that mainstream media was really boring and could be much more exciting and provocative, all that youthful stuff. And the internet made that really easy. But with the ease of publishing, of course, quality is not easy. And so it took a long time to understand that, not only to understand what it takes to produce quality work online, but to be able to develop the techniques and styles and methods. I was, of course, doing my own writing at the time and not having any success with it, and thinking, why don't I just put it online? There's all these self-published authors on the internet now. I could do that too. And I started a story blog called The Fabulist.
Nice.
And was really just putting up my own stuff and colleagues such as Adam and some other friends. And we got listed in a writer's market, duotrope. I don't know how we wound up there, but we started getting submissions, some of which were quite good, just so cold. We didn't have any submissions guidelines or anything up, maybe a contact email. And they just started showing up in our inbox. We didn't pay anybody, but there was, and including ourselves, and they were sufficiently interesting and good enough that we started reaching out to the writers and saying, we'd like to publish this. I actually took down all my old work because I wanted it to be its own thing, and I realized it wasn't quite the place for my writing career. I understood was distinct from what this publication needed to be and wanted to be. And since then, it's been a process of discovery. What can we do with this? what does it want to be, and what do people see in it? And that's a little bit of a snake swallowing its tail, because people send us work that they think would be a good match for it. And how did they come to that conclusion? I don't know. You know, our logo, as I mentioned showed previously, has a sort of letterpress quality to it, you know, as if it was stamped right onto paper by movable type 100 years ago. And maybe that lent it a certain air of, you know, literary pretension or something.
I have so many questions about what you've just told us, because I
Okay.
mean, your life is remarkable and has so many different facets to it. That first off, like, you were writing when you were 11, 12. Were you writing spec fic at the time?
Yeah, had some bunch of weird little stories. There was one about a mole who was it was almost, I guess, a little bit of the, you know, the talking animal genre, Wind in the Willows, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
Mole was stuck in his house feeling really stifled, and you know, I spent some time describing the interior of this cluttered old den, and throws open the window, and the wind comes in, and he feels inspired to change things. And that was probably as a teenager. You know, it always had that weird trend. All I read was science fiction and fantasy, really, and especially I read a lot of the Golden Age and Silver Age stuff, as Asimov and Heinlein. But what really carried me off was the new wave of science fiction, Ursula Le Guin in particular,
Yeah.
whom I love and got to interview many years later, which was a thrill. And Harlan Ellison, Robert Silverberg, Roger Zelazny. Later on, well, I guess Octavia Butler wouldn't be considered new wave, but you know, definitely in the wake of the old technocratic style of science fiction and fantasy. So that's really what informed my reading habits and my writing outside of journalism, nonfiction.
And then you go into journalism for college instead of creative writing or English major. So what pushed you into journalism?
You know, I never really thought about that. I did have a creative writing class in college that my work was well received, but it never occurred to me, and this is kind of a recurring theme. It never occurred to me that this was a something that I could truly make my way as. And I've always been interested in communicating issues and facts and news to you know, in the public interest, I think, was the key factor. I wanted to do public interest reporting. I guess the journalism seemed like work, and the writing fiction seemed like an artistic thing I could pursue when I could. Maybe it was just sort of the upbringing. My family is entrepreneurial, and there was just, you know, I had this expectation that I had to go make a living doing serious stuff. Journalism was hard, though. I found when I was, you know, entering the commercial media world that really the public interest stuff was kind of, yeah, they were sort of interested, but mostly they wanted attention. And my first job was an assistant entertainment editor. I wanted to do some environment reporting on this fancy new website in a big city where I was working, and couldn't get it past the head office. A little bit later, they did a green section for a couple of months that opened with Ed Begley. You know, Ed Begley Jr. was on the front page selling, or not selling, but just promoting a cause, which is fine, I guess. But I actually had resigned and started some nonprofit organizations designed to support independent culture and media and artists and so forth. And I would freelance work for the website I used to work for, and I ended up doing some serious science journalism about polybrominated diphenyl ethers, PBDEs, that's that new car smell. They've been banned a few years, but it's a flame retardant, and it leaks into the water supply from dumps and so forth. It's in plastics and fabrics, and it's in all of us. It's one of those forever chemicals. They didn't know what it was going to do. And I wrote an early article about that. A couple of years later, it was actually banned in California. I don't know if there was necessarily a cause and effect, but it was the first mainstream coverage of it. And I had to do it as a freelancer. I couldn't do it on staff. And that kind of was an early experience of the necessity of creating independent vehicles for media, news, and also culture and art. That, you know, that kind of led me along this ridiculous path. Right.
Ridiculous, but very cool and remarkable at the same time. Like, very nice.
I found it exceptionally remarkable that you're able to say that with no effort whatsoever. Like,
I got a lot of practice when I wrote that thing, you know.
definitely.
gosh,
But
yeah.
so when you're writing the books, like I figure that you are writing at the same time that you're also doing journalism, like you're writing on the side. Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
So at one point you must finish a book and then you have to decide, are you querying agents? Are you sending to publications? What's happening with that side of your life at that point?
Yeah, at that point or now. Uh, I didn't start querying for real until years later. I never felt that the work was ready,
Mm.
and looking back at it, it wasn't. It's funny how you look at something that you think is done with the perspective of years and realize that there's a lot of stuff that you would not ever want to see the light of day.
Yes.
Although when you're
So
writing it, it's genius, right?
Oh yeah, brilliant.
just it's pouring out of your head, and those flows, and mostly it was long short fiction, 8,000 words or so. I have a hard time with short fiction. have produced several novellas. I'm either revising or gearing up for another round of querying. And I've been trying recently to try to get into some writing programs aimed on speculative fiction, towards speculative fiction, without too much success, without any success so far. But I did have my first short fiction sale, my first fiction sale ever. It was through a writer's podcast out of Seattle called 2 Hour Transport, and they're terrific. They're a great bunch. Have a live stream once a month, I think, where writers come and read their stuff, and they liked what they asked me to present something, and they liked what I wrote, and it was a story called Trash Collector. I wrote it a long time ago, in 2010 or so, about a guy who keeps picking up the plastic trash he finds on the ground, and it doesn't ever get recycled. I'm just going to stick it in the basement until they know what to do with it, and it acquires a life of its own.
Oh no,
So cool.
that is awesome.
Yeah, and 2 Hour Transport wound up doing an anthology with Fairwood Press, also out of Washington State, which is a really terrific little imprint. So that's coming out in the fall, and it's just interesting to think about those long cycles. I wrote the piece in 2009, 2010. I'd had the idea for a few years before that, and it had run in a local zine in San Francisco. A colleague, Marina Lazara, had put out a little tabloid print-only publication called Plastic Ocean, and it had one issue, and that was that. And they asked me if I had anything, and 10 plus years later, this story has returned to the world in a more visible form. So it's this long process of encouragement. Marina was a great editor and gave me some advice about the ending, which completely transformed the story into something vastly better with just a couple of words. The magic of a good editor. And yeah, that effort is returned. The energy is still out there, so it's telling.
Now, speaking of editing, you are also a nonfiction editor. So do you edit fiction as well?
Yes, it's
When
both.
did all of that start?
Well, in journalism, the editing is part of your education, proofreading, copy editing, and so on. And, my early work as an editor on a website, you're getting a story ready for publication. It can be in nonfiction and in journalism. You want to preserve the voice, but it's all business. So you just kind of, sometimes you take it as far as you can with the writer, and then you do what needs to be done. Not really. My nonfiction editing was something I was trained in and practiced as a professional. The fiction editing was something I had to learn on the fly, and it was 10 years of mistakes. Just messing it up, screwing it up, not handling the writer relationship well. I made a lot of mistakes, and I regret many of them. Most of them, all of them, I regret them. But I did have the opportunity to reconnect with one of the writers whose story I completely didn't work with. We never wound up running it. And it was a very rewarding reconnection, that we were both at the beginning of these efforts in our lives. And I think that we'd both grown so much. And I think for me, as an editor of fiction, you really are, especially, the Fabulist exists in this weird space between literary publishing and genre publishing. And because genre publishing came out of the pulps in the 30s and 40s, 50s, and so on, it was very rough and tumble and exploitative. And powerful professional organizations emerged on behalf of the writers, the science fiction and fantasy writers of America being the premier such entity, making sure that the rates were fair and that the writers were represented. So genre writers expect to be paid.
Yeah.
Literary writers just want it on their CV, and they'll do, I put out a call for submissions. I sent it to some writing programs to, get some work from their students, and the department chairs began submitting work, and none of it, we didn't have any payment offerings. So it was quite enlightening. And it's, in either case, for a genre or literary work, for the art, and you got to take a lot more care of the writer. So, some work, the hardest work to decline is the work that looks great and could be great as a matter of taste. I have to qualify that. It's a matter of taste. I don't think that while there are things that are objectively good or bad about a story, a lot of it is a matter of taste. Mostly I have found for good works, a decline is really a matter of fit. You want to be sensitive to what the writer intended and facilitate that. If you're imposing your own sense of what the story needs to be, that's a really tricky and dangerous fine line to cross over. I do not want a writer compromising their sense of the art to make it fit for the fabulist. Better that if you don't think it's a good match, withdraw the story. I don't want you to sacrifice it. If you feel that it's beneficial for the work, let's be a team and get the story where everybody's happy. And yeah, I don't know, that's pretty wide-ranging answer. I don't know if it really hit where you want to be.
Yeah, I think
No,
so.
I mean, it did. It makes sense. I mean, there's times when you do want to compromise, and there's times when you want your
Yeah.
vision to be as it is, and you have to be able
Yeah.
to know the difference. And it's hard. And I think one of the things that having an editor does is allows you the opportunity to have another viewpoint to see whether or not you can come up with a new vision, and that maybe it will be better than what you originally thought was going to be your vision of your story. So it's that fine line.
And even depending on the length of the story, like for a full book, there are things that you would want to compromise, and there's others that you say absolutely not. You put your foot down. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, you're absolutely right that if you can form a team and if you can trust your editor enough, like I think that's the relationship that forms there is very important. I agree with you.
Yeah. And that's like life, the people in your life that you trust, who have earned your trust, are the ones that can help so much happen.
So me and Angie and other of our writer friends have spoken about, getting our own publishing company together so that we can, but that takes a lot of guts and a lot of work and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, like they would say. So I understand that you posted it for your own works, but then when you started getting submissions and decided to make this like a real thing, like how, where, wow, like how, that's amazing to
I think
me.
the wow is yeah.
Right?
What the hell was I thinking?
In other words, yeah. So where does that come from? Like where do you think to yourself, like, yeah, I can do this? Like how, wow.
Well, some of it was, as I mentioned, my family is entrepreneurial. My folks ran a research optics company, lasers and telescopes and that sort of thing. So I saw people do this, go and make a thing, and it just seemed like, especially when you're young,
Yes, that's so
that
true.
you can just go do it. And,
Yeah.
I was fortunate to not really leave college with a significant amount of debt. So there was a lot of room in my life. And I was heavily involved with the independent music community in San Francisco, where everybody has a little label, starts a band, puts out their own records, makes their own zines. So it was very much the milieu. And also the internet made it easy, just put up a website, that's all you got to do, right? Sure.
Sure.
And it was actually, at the time, it was very much a if you build it, they will come kind of thing. The internet was not that crowded. It was busy and interesting and exciting, but it was not crowded. Whereas today, if you build it, they won't even notice. Unless you have community, you can connect to it. So we were fortunate to get it started so long ago, and to put a foot down and have a brand, hate to say it, that was visible and able to stake out space. having said all that, it is, of course, really, really demanding. I had started a nonprofit organization, as I mentioned, called Independent Arts and Media, which was very much in that sort of DIY moment in early aughts San Francisco. We put on arts fairs and provided nonprofit sponsorship for other cultural producers and media workers. And there was a hard transition from DIY to professional that involved ultimately me being able to set the organization up for somebody else to run who was actually good at that sort of thing, running a professionalized organization. And that was incredibly demanding and painful, and ultimately incredibly rewarding, because the organization under this new leadership, starting back in 2013, I'm not involved anymore, has really flourished. So that has been encouraging to see the seeds planted flourishing, and it's encouraged me to keep pushing forward with the Fabulist. It is ridiculously demanding. We just did the Bay Area Book Festival on June 2nd, and we make our own books by hand as chapbooks. We went to Authors AWP conference in Seattle in 2023. Somebody said, share a table with us. I said, sure, without thinking what the hell I'm going to sell, and realized that we could actually make chapbooks based on our contract with the writers from their stories. Couldn't afford offset, made the books by hand, got a photo printer, folded and stapled them, got some nice paper, and they sold. And now we have a subscription program with a bit more than a dozen subscribers that I make books for, and it's exciting, and we're selling things that people want to support. Oh my goodness.
I know. It's a really good story, by the way, if you guys want to read it. It's very good.
That's a wild story. I'm so pleased to see that.
Really, yeah. Really cool.
Yeah. So, but now what do we do? Actually, it's fun to make these things, but really time consuming. And I would love to do offset runs, but then I have to market it. So now I'm in this long and interesting process of working with a consultant from, we were able to get support through a grant program with the Community of Literary Magazines and Presses, CLMP, that enabled us to hire a publishing consultant. And we're looking at print on demand and means for getting the work into Amazon and bookstores and
nice.
Yeah, but well, when do I get
There's a lot of
do my life?
Yeah, no.
yes.
Why do you need to do that, right? But
Sure, yeah, really.
Right. So what is the first story that you ever published on the Fabulist that wasn't yours?
It's called Perfect Day by our art director, Adam Meyers. And it's a snapshot of life in the 1990s amongst the young and wild. It's a recollection by Adam about his friend Marianne, who passed away.
Oh.
And he's remembering this time with her. They're hanging out, and it turns into a little fantasia. He goes to a wild party of the sort you would have when you're in your 20s, a big house party and table full of booze and people getting drunk and falling over, and he encounters God at the party and has this really hilarious and thought-provoking encounter and conversation with God, and then and moves on. And it's really very poignant. I had met Marianne a number of years before her passing, and it's implied that he'll never see her again, but not stated. And maybe it's just my personal awareness of the story, but I find it a really sweet and beautiful tale that really captures what the magazine is going for. We love the flights of imagination, but it's about our lives and our experiences in the world and its challenges, and how we move forward. So I think it set the tone, that was the DNA.
Nice.
I can't speak too highly about Adam. He's an incredible human being.
I love when you can find those people, the people that are in your life. And yeah, that right, Angie? Thank you, Angie.
Yes. Thank you.
So
He
let's
was a bike messenger, and it was a pretty rough and tumble crowd. And he says to me one day, I need to borrow your computer. I'm going to apply for an internship. And it was at the San Francisco Art Institute. And next thing I knew, he had a scholarship at the Art Institute and was pursuing his MFA and became an exhibiting gallery artist,
love that. Very nice.
Amazing.
So your life, let's go into your life as a publisher now. So when let's talk about all those submissions, because I can just imagine. I can just imagine when you open for submissions, like how many submissions are you getting on average, or do you even want to talk about the numbers?
No, that's fine. We would usually get couple hundred,
Mhm.
hundred and some odd to a couple hundred. But the most recent one we did, we actually upped our rates, taking a chance on a digital subscription program that's going to launch this fall called the Fabulist Flash. It's going to be flash fiction of up to 1,000 words of fantastical, speculative stories of all sorts. And I got 445 manuscripts for that in a week, which is crazy. And I thought, oh, we'll do flash fiction. It's short. It'll be easy to read. The slush pile. Well, that was, 350,000, 400,000 words.
Yeah.
Wow.
So do you have other people reading the slush pile with you, or do you do it all by yourself?
I do it all by myself, which is problematic. Part of it is paranoia. Right now it's like my taste, and I have yet to find folks whose taste I trust who have the time.
Mhm.
Folks say they want to read slush, and that's great, but I would find that the reads I would get weren't always matching what we were looking for. I do want to find support, but another big thing is I want to be able to pay people. Right now we're all volunteers. It's just Adam and myself, and we're older now. We're in our 50s, and there is a time in one's life to do DIY stuff for free and involve all your friends, and that's
Past.
10, 20 years ago. The folks who could really bring it, like me, don't volunteer anymore, except for their own stuff. So that's a hard threshold to pass through, but I think we're getting close. And I do want to hire some associates to support the process. I read them myself. It takes a long time. I don't know how people can plow through a giant pile of work, because every story requires a lot of attention. Some pieces are clearly a no for whatever reason it may be, from it's not a good fit to it's objectively not awesome writing, or they never read your submissions guidelines. Some of them are an instant yes, and those are extremely rare. And there's a whole lot of them which are good, and those are the hardest and the most heartbreaking. And it takes multiple reads. I read these several times. It takes time to read each one, even if it's short. You're reading closely, so I can't do a lot in a session. It burns you out fast. So, it took me, I really wrapped up. I got probably about 40 odd stories out of the 445 under contract in April or May. And I still got about a dozen or two left I'm still wrangling with. One of the things I'm trying to learn is stuff that I don't react to personally, but that are good, and I need another perspective about it. I have a piece like that right now, which is a really interesting, very experimental and prose-wise look at cycles of violence in fathers and sons, and generational violence told in a very magic realist way. It's the sort of thing that you read about, you read it, you think about it. My initial reaction was how interesting, but it's not grabbing me. Going back to it a couple weeks later, seeing more in it, and then asking, I need some perspective. Will you get back to me on this? And then waiting, because they're not getting back to you on time because they have their own lives. So that part is a struggle. I try to imagine the piece in the publication and being read, like what would it look like laid out on the page with an illustration, a headline, and a little cut line where I write a little description of it. How would that land? And I try to imagine the typical reader, what would their reactions be to it? And I try to think about the range of pieces we've published. We have some lighter and lighter stuff. We have a lot of more serious stuff. We have a lot of abstract work. Does it fit in there? It feels super tentative, like I'm walking carefully forward in a poorly illuminated landscape, and I don't know how each step is going to land. It feels a little cowardly, actually, sometimes. Like, can I take a chance on this story? What are people going to think? Like,
That's
just
not
be
a word
bold.
I would have ever thought that you would use like that. Wow, that's a totally new perspective for me. That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's weird. No, it's true. People's attention is so fleeting. And I am still learning personally as a writer and an editor to a lot of stuff I feel conviction about doesn't land in a distracted world. And it makes me very cautious about trying to express myself and to get it absolutely right. And I admire the folks who can just come out swinging. I would like to do that more. I think it's something I'm still learning how to do. And yeah, when it's something that's more than me, when it's the publication and everybody else's work involved, I am concerned about doing it wrong and costing everybody. I don't want to.
That shows your heart, though. Like, I think that shows your personality. That shows how much you care. So I don't know. Like, I don't think that's cowardly. I think that's empathetic. That's like you're just showing your heart there. I think that's very, very nice.
Well, we're our own hardest critics, so I'll take that as encouragement.
I know I'm going to put you on the spot, but because we have a lot of listeners and viewers that are writers, what are some of the top things that you can think of when you were saying some of them are straight up no? Like what would be some of the general, like very high level generalized reasons why immediately you would say like, no?
Yeah, I think honestly, fit is the biggest deal.
Okay.
I found that there are genre publications that do stuff straight genre with the tropes genre right up front. In my reading, not going particularly deep with that, and that's not going to click. We have to really care about the character in an organic way and the situation. It has to. And it has to happen within a context that isn't recycled. You know, a lot of genre is, I hate to say it because I love genre, is recycling tropes.
Yeah.
So we want something fresh, and it's really about the people and the ideas rather than the characteristics of the genre, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are ideas and plot elements that don't work for us, and that can start to become moral. I remember one story that was a revenge fantasy, well written, a revenge fantasy about a work situation. And why are you sending me this totally hollow piece of self-gratification? I don't want to see it. um, uh,
Like what percentage of your entries are like that kind of thing where you immediately say not a fit, won't work?
oh, I'd say 20 to 40%, and that's really
Wow.
rough. That's a rough. We get a lot of stuff I do like. Our acceptance rate is 1 to 3%. Sometimes we actually did one call that got 7% acceptance. So there's a lot of stuff that's good, and we don't know quite where to go with it. I have received work that has been morally objectionable and it made me angry. That's extremely rare. That only happened once or twice. A lot of the time, it's just the ambition the reach exceeds the grasp. It's a great idea and they can't do it for technical reasons. The prose is leaden, or just the writing is not where we need it to be. Yeah, and then that final giant chunk of 40 to 60 to 75 to 80% of the manuscripts, depending on the call, which are good, and we have to make that hard call. There was an anecdote when I was working at a community radio station in San Francisco. I was the volunteer manager and the music director. The music department was always really passionate. Everybody wanted this record in or that record, and why can't we put it in? And there was a huge kerfuffle about some local band's record. And I went to the music director, who was also a volunteer. We're all volunteers, and said, why don't Jay was the guy's name, the late Jay Jaworski. The record's pretty good. Why don't we add it? And he said, that's right. It's pretty good. Do you know how many pretty good records we get? We only run excellent music. And that was a really, something to think about. There is a lot of good work out there, and pretty good work out there. And there's a limited amount of space and airtime. If the DJ wants to play that song, they can do that. It's just not going to be added to the main rotation, not going to be added to the stacks. And that's the same thing we deal with. We ultimately are going to be deciding on, does this really take us there? Are we thinking about it afterwards? Are we emotionally moved? Is the writing just capturing us and staying in our heads? So yeah, that's a hard cut. To write something good but not great.
And if you had advice for the people like the 40 to 60% who it's pretty good but is just not there yet, like what would be your advice to those people?
I mean, I'm one of those people.
Yeah. But what would you like? Is it just keep on writing? Is it,
Yeah.
yeah.
And workshop the heck out of it. Keep submitting that piece,
Huh.
looking for submission for better fits, better matches. You know, that's the other thing. Like an editor, ultimately, it's a matter of taste. And it's not a law of physics at all. These are not you know, determinations inscribed in the firmament by some divine hand.
Feels like it sometimes.
Yeah, but sometimes it's like, you know, somebody doesn't like it and it
Right.
doesn't, their opinion, they happen to be a gatekeeper, but there are other gatekeepers, or you can do it on yourself, on your own as well,
Right.
which is its own voyage, you know? So it is a matter of persistence. There's work we've all had to let go of that we're fond of.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So what in your entire career do you think has been the most important thing that you've done?
Career.
Mhm.
I
In
like that.
general?
Yes, I like that separation of work and life. The most important thing I think that I have been able to support is the growth of other creative individuals, writers and artists, and also workers and producers in media, journalism, and the arts. And it's been through different vehicles. This nonprofit I mentioned, Independent Arts and Media, has found a life of its own. Once I was able to, if you love something, set it free. It got set free and under good circumstances and is still serving people to this day. It's amazing to me. I see the logo, or I encounter journalists or arts organizations that are using the organization as their fiscal sponsor. That's incredible. And I should also say, we just found out that one of our stories is a nominee for the an official nominee of the jury of the Shirley Jackson Awards,
Fantastic.
which is
Congratulations.
incredible.
Yes.
But it was Syasia Decay is her name. The story is called Casty
Love it.
Girls. It's an amazing story that, in tone, sort of picks up some of the provocations of Ursula Le Guin's story, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. In my reading of it, it's, I don't know if you're familiar with that story. It's a brutal anecdote about a perfect city with a horrible secret at its core. And Syasia, who's a Dutch writer who lives in Belgium, explores that theme with a fantastical city with a rich and beautiful holiday tradition that has something dreadful at the heart of it, and the way people acculturate it and accept it. And I'm crossing my fingers for you, Syasia. By the time this airs, you'll know. But that's, I think, what the magazine is for. That's what got Adam involved with this. That's how I met Adam, really. Well, I met Adam at a party, but we became pals because we were both involved in DIY activities to support the community. And that's what the Fabulist really is for and inspires us, is that we're creating an avenue for people to get their work out, a work of consequence that makes you think and makes you feel, you know?
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And I could talk to you about this for the next 5 hours and still want to know more, because it's just, I don't know, like I love to read science fiction. I love to read the science fiction that you can just, read and there's no consequence. But, the Handmaid's Tale, the 1984s, the Ursula Le Guin's, the ones that make you think are the ones that are closest to my heart. So congratulations on really literally doing a publication and a whole magazine about things like that, because there's not a lot of make you think in the world anymore, I feel. So
Mm.
to have a place like that where you can go read, like, I mean, even just reading this, like, I mean, I was flabbergasted, and the ending just ends, and all of a sudden you rethink about the story and you're like, whoa, like that happens to me. You know what I mean? Like we all have a little bit
Yeah.
of this. So I love that. I absolutely love that. As much as I love the just, like the fantasy that you just read because, oh, cool, like cool plot,
Mhm.
the tropes that you love and everything.
Yeah.
Like you need some of the thinking in your life. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for bringing that to us. So if someone goes to your website, the Fabulist Magazine, it's fabulistmagazine.com, right? Which we will
Yeah.
have in our description box on the YouTube channel. What can they expect from that website? What can they see? What can they do?
By the time this interview airs, we'll have a new website, which I'm doing right now. But the first thing you can do is read. We have a rotating set of offerings. We're trying to produce and publish more book reviews, regular short fiction from the Fabulist Flash, our forthcoming digital subscription series, which should be every Friday. We're going to do longer form pieces once a month, and we'll have some art galleries online. We're having about I think about a half dozen or more new art galleries that will be publishing over the coming months. That's all managed by Adam, my colleague. Some new poetry from our poetry editor, Russell Gonzaga, working with his community. And to keep up with us, follow us on social media. We have Facebook and Instagram, Blue Sky, and Mastodon. We're also on Twitter. Try not to use Twitter too much because of the guy. What's his name? And we also have chapbooks. And these are for sale. They are printed on archival paper with nice interiors and drop caps and author photos. This is a terrific story full of eyes within, about a boy born into the foster care system who winds up in prison, who's a very special child, written by Jay Nasir, this is a terrific piece, one of my favorites. He's a precious and uniquely gifted being. He's an angel who the society does not know what the hell to do with him and treats him very poorly. We just published, this is kind of done in the Dover Classics Thrift Edition model, the constantly unfolding horrors of Vasily Nikolaevich. It's some Dostoevsky fan fiction with a little bit of Twilight Zone thrown in there by San Francisco writer Jen Burke Anderson. And it's our longest piece. It's a terrific piece of work. We're going to try to do a shelf-ready, square-bound edition of that. That's one of our upcoming publishing projects. And we have, more than a dozen of these chapbooks, which you can subscribe to and receive more or less once per month.
Nice.
So go to our pages, and if you like it, your support helps us pay writers.
Which is what we're all about. Fantastic. And the other thing too, I would say, is I have gone to read some of the things on your website. It's worth the read. Go. It's totally worth it. And the book reviews are awesome too. So absolutely, it's totally worth it. And I was so surprised by this story, and I would recommend it. Honestly, I had a great time reading that story. It was awesome. So
That's awesome.
And if your other chapbooks are like that, then my goodness, don't hesitate. Bye. So thank you so much for showing us a day in the life of. That was fantastic.
Yes.
And we're all tired from all of your work that you do. I don't even know how you do everything that you do, but congratulations on the multifaceted artist work is fantastic. And we are going to switch over now so that people can get to know you, not as the artist that you are, but as the person that you are. So we have our speed round top 10 questions that we like to ask everybody that comes on. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm buckling myself in here.
All right. Number 1 is, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would that be?
I really like San Francisco because I do a lot of bike riding,
Nice.
and it's a great city for that, both off-road and on-road. But if I could live anywhere in the world, I would like to have, how about this, if we're dreaming, pied-à-terres in Kyoto, Paris, London more so, Kyoto and London, maybe New York City.
Those are not
Pied-à-terres.
bad. Those are not bad.
You
But,
just bounce around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if
for
we're
my
gonna
jet
go
setting
there,
lifestyle
Really
of
big. It's yeah.
why not? And also bicycling in San Francisco.
Oh yeah,
Isn't that
yes.
oh wow.
How do you think I do
Congratulations.
the stress?
Okay.
That's a lot.
Right? Oh,
That's-
yeah.
The thing about a hill is that you can ride up it and then you've achieved it and you can go back down again, whereas life's actual struggles tend to linger. So
That's so true. It's so true. But still, yeah. Okay. Congratulations on doing that. That's awesome. Number 2, would you rather cook the meal or clean the kitchen?
cook the meal.
Are you a good cook?
My family thinks so.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. I love to cook. I do the cooking, so.
The next one I've only asked a few times because it's kind of a maybe a little harder question, but seeing as though you're an editor and a publisher, I think that you can answer this. Do you have a favorite word?
Huh. Well, the one that came to mind was loquacious, which
I'm
is
okay with
ridiculous.
that.
I talk too much. Um,
But what you say is interesting, so I'm okay with it. Number 4, if a movie were made of your life, what genre would it be?
well, of course, one would want it to be something fantastical, science fiction or fantasy story, but I'm afraid it would be probably a really boring documentary that would only be about, edited down for some boring graduate student class. So.
See, I maybe because it's yours, like I was honestly thinking like it would be like a really good drama because like all this stuff that you've done. So
I
it's
guess we've
all
had some drama.
yeah, it's a perspective thing. So number
A
5, what,
hard-hitting
pardon?
journalist's story,
Yes, exactly.
shoe
There you go.
leather and struggles with the main office and all that.
That's right. With the entrepreneurial sidekicks and everything. That would be really good. So number 5, what is your favorite activity on your day off? But now that I've spoken to you, I don't know if you have a day off. But if you did have a day off, what would you like to do?
I love to ride my bike and I love to be outdoors. And it's in contrast to being indoors all the time.
Mhm.
I love to do trail biking and mountain biking. It gets me directly connected in an emotional way to the landscape and the weather and the place. And it doesn't involve using my verbal brain,
That's
which is very nice.
very nice too. Yeah.
Movies are great too.
Movies are great, but I agree with you. Like physical activity, there's nothing like it. There's absolutely nothing like it. And for writers, like getting outside, very important. I
You
think.
gotta.
Number 6, if you could live forever, would you?
It's funny. I was thinking about that because you changed so much that would you be you? How could you stay you? I just see change being inevitable, and the person you are when you say yes to that would even 100 or 200 or 500 years down the line wouldn't be the same person at all. So it would be neat to try.
It's a
How
tough
about that?
question to answer because and you think also like 400 or 500 years from now, are you going to be just blasé about everything? Like you've seen it before. Is there anything new? Was there, I don't know. It would be but I agree with you. Saying yes now is okay, right? Number
There's a
7.
great oh, sorry.
No, please go.
There was a great. Did anybody read the Sandman comics? Neil Gaiman. Can't recommend them too highly. Neil Gaiman, we all know, but there's a great arc within the Sandman about a guy who Death and Dream have a bet to see that this, whether a human would get tired of life, and Death
Oh,
gives
I
the guy.
remember that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they go
And
they
it's a
meet at a
great.
bar, right? Like
Yes.
yes, that's right. Yes, that's a good one. He's amazing. That's
Yeah.
number 7. What time period would you go to if you were given a time machine?
Ooh, Doctor Who time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, not wanting to mess anything up. Where wouldn't you want to go? It just is where do you want to stay is the main issue, and probably not. You wouldn't want to stay. I like the medical technology of the present day,
Yep.
but it would be very interesting to see medieval eras across the world and prehistoric eras, which were still times of civilization and history, just not any that we've recorded.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't mind a glimpse down the line too, see how it works out.
I would love to
Yes.
go to the future and see what's going on. Do we survive even,
Yeah.
Number 8, which mythical creature would you like to be real?
You're asking some good ones. Well, I was going to say the chimera because, our world is so mashed up and mashed together, and the chimera is just an agglomeration of other animals, but and a dangerous one. But actually, I think it would be the Sphinx because we need more difficult questions with high costs of failure.
I love
Maybe we don't need more of that. Maybe.
framework. I love it. You're so complex. I love it. I love the way you like I think people
It's
would
very
just
simple.
said like a unicorn, but you went for the Sphinx because you wanted it to be hard. Like think about that for a second. That's cool.
I got to interview Neil Gaiman many years ago on community radio, and I asked him, "Do you think? Do you believe in dragons or werewolves?" And he said something to the effect of, "Yes, I do, but I never want to see proof of it." because that would rob the world of mystery. I'm paraphrasing,
Mhm.
but mythical creatures.
Yeah,
Deep. That's very deep.
I like that.
Yeah. Number 9, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is music to your daily life?
Very, very important. We listen to music every day. While I'm working, I tend not to be able to have music on because the lyrics distract me. But we start and finish the day with music. Play the banjo. We have other musicians in our family, old-fashioned banjo, sort of square dancing stuff.
Um,
And we start the day. I have to give shouts out to KALX Berkeley, a terrific community radio station based community and college radio station where it's always fresh, and they're having a ball. You can tell. WFMU out of New Jersey is also a terrific program, and we love Dave the Spaz on 9 to midnight Eastern time. He plays all these weird 50s B-sides and is just a terrific DJ. Commercial radio is Nowheresville, and I know it's just giant blocks of advertising. And I know NPR is trying to do more music, and they can bring it. There's a neat station out of Seattle, KEXP, that does that has a good independent music perspective. I will always opt for the really well curated freeform community radio station, though, with good training for the DJs. And CalX is my go-to for that.
Nice. I love it. And the last question, which is absolutely not intellectual. What is your favorite topping on pizza?
This is going to probably be controversial amongst some people, especially to my New Jersey community. I am from New Jersey, but I love Hawaiian pizza. I love pineapple and ham, although I put anchovy and pineapple on.
I love anchovies.
Thank
You
you
got
so
it. You got
much
to taste it.
for answering all those silly questions. We love to hear the answers, and you had some really good ones. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so you had already kind of gone over your social media links. Were there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Find us on the internet at fabulistmagazine.com. Here's Octo Borgnine. It's Ernest Borgnine,
Love it.
who's been modified for, and our
That's
yeah.
Oh,
We're trying to build some community online. We're thinking about starting a writing community on Facebook. So sign up, join us on Facebook, The Fabulist,
Okay.
with a T, on Facebook. Follow us there. Instagram, we're trying to get a little bit more active on. Blue Sky and Mastodon, we need to cultivate it a little bit better. Social media is pretty exhausting, but those are great places to engage with the community, not just with us, but the people who are interested in our work.
were there any other projects that you wanted to mention before you sign off?
What are
Well,
you working on right now?
yeah, I have a future history that starts an alternative future history that starts a few years ago. It starts in the 90s and goes about 800 years in the future that I would really like to see see the light of day, and someday it might. I'm working on a story called The Stone Wardens, in which the stones notice all this activity on the surface. And it's all the fast ones are working very hard and scratching into the skin of the earth and building and mining. And what is all this stuff? And it's about the long, slow lives of stones encountering these fast beings that live on the dermis of the earth, and how they interact and relate. And it's really fun, and I need to finish the thing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to thank you for coming on. You have been so much fun, and we have learned a lot. This is so much, and I can't wait to go to your website and just start reading. And but we just really appreciate the fact that you came on, and we just want to thank all the people who came and watched this episode. If you like this video, please like, subscribe. Check out some of our author interviews that we have. There's going to be a playlist popping up at the end of the video. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Wilson. It was a blast. I had so much fun.
It absolutely was. Thank you so much.
Angie and Christy, you're great. Thank you so much.